Welcome back to the channel. Happy New Year to everyone. The markets are certainly having a happy new year, with many altcoins actually silently doubling over the past week since the turning of the year. So in today's video, I want to talk about exactly what's happening in the market, why we are starting to see this Bitcoin uptick, why we are starting to see coins that everyone thought was dead now starting to wake up. And I'm going to run through the altcoins that I've identified that have significant whale interest that could be worth looking at. There are actually a couple of alts which I think are actually looking good for entries right now. So there's a lot happening in the market. I don't want you to miss the move. I'm going to keep this video short and concise, tell you everything that you need to know about the market right now. I haven't uploaded in a little while. I took a break with my family over Christmas, but we're back now with our regular programming. It was nice to have a break. I hope everyone else enjoyed the break as well, but the markets are certainly back into full swing at the start of this year, so it's giving us plenty to trade and plenty to talk about. All right, so just starting with Bitcoin here quickly, you can see that it now is back in an uptrend. You can see higher lows. We haven't technically made a higher high because you have a resistance level at 95K. If we did start to clear this level, there is not much volatility historically, not much volume traded in the range between 95K to $100,000. So that could be a gap up that happens quite quickly. I'll talk about whether I think that's going to happen later in the video. Clearly, 95K is still a key level that we need to get above. But what I will say is that overall, Bitcoin does look constructive. And this is for a variety of reasons that we're going to get into. But the fact that you now have higher lows, the fact that you're now seeing the on-chain indicators shift into bullish territory, the fact that you're now seeing ETF flows starting to tick positive again, this all bodes well for a turning of the tide for Bitcoin. But we'll talk about that more later. In the altcoin market, we are seeing some surprise gainers over the past week. So you have Render, which has almost doubled. Many of the meme coins are going crazy. Pepe, Bonk, Sui. A lot of altcoins people just thought were dead because they were going down and down and down during December have actually reversed most of their gains. I mean, in the case of Render, it's actually reversed most of the downturn over the last 3 months. So you're now starting to see altcoins getting back to their last quarterly open levels, which I think is a good sign that things are starting to turn. You can also see, if you want to take a view of the bubbles here, that over the last week, you've had strong gainers across the AI sector. That's something I want to talk about later in the video. I have a coin that I think is extremely underrated in the AI sector that is now starting to wake up and break out past key resistance levels. So we'll talk about that, but a variety of other coins across the utility sectors and the DeFi sector as well, starting to look good. So a lot of altcoins are starting to wake up after pretty much going down only during the month of December. But I guess that begs the question, before we get into altcoins and specifics and trade ideas and all of that, why is the market pumping? Well, there's one very simple effect which is happening right now, and it's the reverse effect of tax loss harvesting. So if you were following the channel in December, you'll know my last video was titled "Why the Crypto Crash Ends January 1st." And in this video, I detail an effect, as you can see on the screen, of tax loss harvesting. And basically, the entire video was talking about how a lot of people, especially desks, funds, traders, towards the end of the year, unwind positions that are at a loss for the year, and a lot of crypto positions were at a loss for the year in the month of December before repurchasing these assets at the beginning of the new year, which can cause a big squeeze up in prices in the new year. And I talked about how I was positioned for this and how I expected the crypto crash to end on January 1st. Now, that's pretty much exactly what happened. I don't always get it right in the market, but in this case, I was spot on. January 1st, the market turned exactly as we predicted, literally on the date, and it's been up only, not only for Bitcoin, but a variety of alts. If you want to go across any chart, Ethereum, Filecoin, literally whatever you want, Render, any of the AI coins, they all turned on January 1st. And I do believe a significant factor behind this was exactly what I pointed out on December 16th in this video. I also pointed out, even before that, a month prior, that I thought the Bitcoin bottom was in. I did a video saying I'm convinced the Bitcoin bottom is in. And at the time, everyone was really scared. This was, I think, around here when the market had just rebounded off the lows, but everyone was really scared after this capitulation wick to 81K. And I said, I'm convinced that the bottom is actually in. A lot of people didn't believe me. They thought we were going to continue this downtrend lower, but the market actually reversed. And one of the reasons I thought the bottom was in at the time is because everyone was just so bearish. It was absolute peak FUD, peak despair. Everyone was really bearish. And I thought, based on the structure, the microstructure was starting to shift to the upside. I thought the probability was that the bottom was in. And that's also what has ended up playing out. So it's been a pretty good month in terms of us navigating the market. So make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want more updates like this. And I'm pretty happy with how we've been able to forecast things over the last month. But let's continue to look into the future in today's video. I'm going to be talking about my 2026 outlook and also talking about more of a micro outlook as well over some of the top altcoins for the next couple of weeks, because you are seeing a lot of movers. But I just want to finish this section on why the market is pumping, because it's not only the tax loss harvesting, that is definitely one reason, but this is now leading to a lot of short squeezes. So you can see that there are a lot of shorts getting wrecked across Bitcoin, across Ethereum, across a variety of altcoins. People were heavily short, either head short or just naked short, heading into the new year. They've been absolutely wrecked on this move to the upside. And that's the reason why you're seeing a lot of altcoins move violently. It's because you're seeing a bunch of short squeezes to the upside as shorts get wiped out. The other thing you're seeing, and this is probably the best thing because tax loss harvesting is really just a reverse effect of the selling that happened in December. Short squeezes are just a reflection of offside positioning. But probably the best sign that we've got is that the flows are starting to come back. Now, of course, you need more evidence with this stuff. A couple of days doesn't paint the full picture, but this is the strongest ETF flow day we've seen in a matter of weeks. $700 million flowing back into the ETFs. Now, you could make the argument that it's simple tax loss harvesting happening on the first trading Monday, but nonetheless, it's still a very positive sign for the market. And if this does continue over the 6th, 7th, 8th, it could prove that there is demand coming back to the market. And this is also coupled at a time when the Coinbase premium is ticking from negative to positive. So if you don't know what the Coinbase premium is, a positive premium means that Bitcoin is more expensive on Coinbase, so in the US, which signals strong buying pressure from the US, especially from institutions. A negative premium indicates selling pressure or weaker US demand, with Bitcoin cheaper on Coinbase. And that was the case in December, but it's now flipped, if you want to go onto the 30-minute chart, into the positive territory, which signals that the market is flipping again. So the way that I'm thinking about it now is that December is a write-off. All the price action in December, the PA from December, the downtrend in December, the tax loss harvesting, everything that happened in December, I think we should wipe the slate clean and look at the market for what it is. Look at the new year for what it is. Look at the market structure for what it is. Look at the catalysts this year for what they are, because the reason why price was so negative in the last month of last year is not the same reason. Not all of those reasons are now valid in January 2026. So I think mentally we need to reset and now look at what's next going forward. And I'm going to give you my outlook for 2026 and give you my rough macro thinking in a second here. But before we get into that, I just want to tell you one thing to be wary of, because these are good signs. The flows are coming back. There is a short squeeze happening. The market is starting to shift structure. A lot of altcoins are starting to wake up. But just be wary of one thing, and that is the technical setup of the market right now. So I want to establish a few key levels. Firstly, you have the point of control, so the most traded zone in terms of volume at 87.5K. This is a very key level. This is now our support level. If we started coming back down and closing below this level, that would be bearish, and I would significantly increase the probability of us testing the lows again or making a new low. Just telling you that this is the support level to watch. Technically right now, we are heading into a resistance level. This is marked by the support on November 13th at 94K, the resistance here at 94.5K on December 10th as well, and we are testing that level again. Now, I do think there's a very good chance that we come above this level, we actually consolidate and look to gap up, as I said, to 100K. There's not a lot of volume traded in that zone historically. You can see here there's a big gap, so that squeeze can happen quite aggressively. This is definitely a trade setup I'm looking at on some altcoins. I'll tell you the best altcoin proxies I'll be trading alongside Bitcoin in just a minute here, but that is the setup right now. So over the next couple of days, we'll know. I'll keep you updated because this is something to keep your eye on. From a slightly more macro perspective though, the 96K level is still a major zone of resistance. So we would need to close and consolidate above 96K. This is something I also highlighted on the channel back here. And I said this was one of the triggers for the bull market being officially back. And you probably wouldn't see a lot of altcoins making huge, consistent gains until we flipped above that level. And we are coming back to test that level again. So just giving you a quick refresher on the importance of the 96K level for Bitcoin to get above. And then it's pretty much light work above that level just based on the volume profile. The volume profile just tells us if there's typically a lot of volume traded in that range. You can also look at the order books. They're thinner in that region until you get to the low 100Ks again. So that can be a move that happens quite quickly if it does happen. And clearly, that would cause euphoria and people coming back to the market, and altcoins would do really well in that environment. But we aren't there yet. That's why I am just issuing a bit of caution that we would need to get above that level. And if we did reject and pull back at this level, that's not totally out of the ordinary. I don't think you should be making any rash, FOMO-y New Year decisions today. Like today is the day, because I know a lot of you are just coming back to your desks. This is my second official day back at the desk. Today is the day to think long term. You want to think about longer term positioning. Yes, it's okay to take some trades. I'm taking a couple trades. I'll speak about the catch-up trades I'm taking. But these are siloed in the 20% trading portion of my portfolio. The majority of my portfolio is still set up. My Bitcoin holdings, and I spoke about the fact I was buying between 80 and 90K, they're still set up. My altcoin holdings, like the Asta buy that I talked about, I think it's up like 15, 20% now in the last month, they are still longer term. So the best setups, the strongest, the highest conviction setups, I still am looking with a medium to long-term outlook. Long-term could be 6 months plus in this space. I'll talk about my outlook for this year soon. And I'm not putting, a bunch of capital into short-term trades. I am putting a little bit of capital in when I see there's an opportunity, but now's not the time to go crazy FOMO into the market. You always want to remain level-headed and you always want to be patient. I know a lot of you probably learned that lesson last year. Maybe that's one of your resolutions this year, to be a bit more level-headed in the market, take more time when it comes to decision-making, specifically when it comes to chasing pumps in the market and making money in the market. It's very important to be patient. Morin is also looking at a short at this level. So he's one of the traders that is in the Discord. He's an amazing educator, amazing trader. You're probably going to see more of him on the channel very soon. He's actually taking some shorts. You can pause the video and read his logic. I won't go through it all. It's obviously in the Mars High Club as usual, but he's actually taking a short. So when my top trader, my top high time frame trader alongside Doc, of course, is taking a short, I'm just a little bit wary as well. I'm not an expert trader. I have a basic grasp of the fundamentals, but I still lean on Paradise, Doc, and Morin, my analysts, to help me with the trading side, and they are wary at this level as well, despite there being very good fundamental signs, which Fabian has also pointed out in the group. So I'm going to dive deeper on this in my next video. It's probably going to be tomorrow or maybe the day after on Thursday. But I do want to go through my 2026 outlook, just a very short version of my outlook. I've got a bunch of predictions. I have a bunch of theories. I have a bunch of things that I'm looking at. They're going to be shared in the next video in my official outlook forecast predictions video. But this one is just going to give you a little bit of an insight as to how I'm viewing 2026 right now. But before we get into that, we have some Noti Gang people to give $100 to. Remember, if you comment Noti Gang on any of the videos, you run the chance to win $100. I'm picking 5 people in every video. Maybe you've won before. Maybe I'm going to pick you again. You can win as many times as you want. Mustafa, you just won $100. Brian, you won $100. SL, you won $100. Jane, you won $100. Manly, you won $100. If you want to claim your $100, just email the giveaways email in the description below. And remember, you always have to watch the next video to know if you were picked, because if you comment on today's video, then you need to watch the next video to find out. I think even in general, though, it's still good to watch every single video, because I do build the story over time. I think it's important to have context by watching every single video, because the last video I made, for example, I talked about tax loss harvesting. Now I'm doing a follow-up on tax loss harvesting. So for all the videos to make sense, for my changes in positioning to make sense, for my changes in sentiment as things happen on the chart to make sense, you need to watch every video. There have definitely been times where, people watch a video and then 3 months later they come back and they're like, oh, you were bullish, now you're bearish, or you were bearish and now you're bullish, like what's happened? Well, that wouldn't really make sense, would it? It's like skipping to season 3 of a TV show instead of watching every episode to see how things unfold. It's very important that you tune in to see these things happening in real time. And I want to reward the loyal viewers who tune in every day, and that's why I'm doing the Noti Gang series. So congrats to everyone that won today. Check in on the next video to see if you won from your comments on this video. But going back to my outlook, and then we'll get into the fun, juicy altcoins stuff and some setups that I'm seeing and what the whales are buying in a minute. But in terms of 2026, I think that it is overall going to be an up year for markets. Now, it's going to be more volatile than 2025. 2025 was pretty clean up only. Of course, we had the tariff scare in April, which sent markets down. We had volatility across crypto. I'm speaking macro here. I know crypto was mostly down in terms of average performance, but from a macro perspective, last year was an up only year from equities, gold, silver, etc. So looking into this year, from a macro perspective, there are a lot of catalysts. I do expect the manufacturing index, this is one of the major constituents of the business cycle, to tick upwards this year. This is heavily correlated with Bitcoin. Raoul Pal talks a lot about it. I am a believer somewhat in that theory, so I think that lines up for markets right now. I think the midterms line up for markets. Trump wants to see the markets do well. I think the pressure on the US dollar lines up for markets as well. I think rate cuts line up for markets. We have a new Fed chair coming in, and liquidity overall, it should be a liquidity positive year. I think that also lines up for risk assets to do well. At the same time, because a lot of price discovery happened last year, it is going to be more of a volatile year, which is going to create opportunities in both directions. You're going to have some deeper corrections to the downside when people think it's all over, and you're probably going to have the biggest blow off we've seen in a long time, especially on the small caps and the riskier assets and the global equities than we've seen in a long time. You can see in front of you here, we've got the small cap index, the small cap 2000. This is starting to go parabolic. It's just had a breakout. This is a risk indicator that we are late cycle. There's also evidence, Chase Pizzino talks a lot about it. Hopefully we'll get him back on the channel soon, that we are also heading into the final year of the real estate and the business cycle, which would be coming to an end towards the end of this year. And that could also potentially signal a top in risk assets in general. The good news for crypto is if stocks go crazy and small cap stocks go crazy, this will send risk assets into a frenzy, at least at some point during the year, which should give that final blow off for Bitcoin. And then that should trickle down into altcoins. I mean, we've seen just Bitcoin moving from 87K back to 93K has caused a lot of alts to go crazy. This just opens up opportunity. If this happened for a period of weeks, retail can come back into the market, people can get more bullish again, and we can have one last blow off top. So I think there's definitely a strong probability Bitcoin guns for highs again, potentially breaks highs. I don't know exactly. I'll think about it a little bit more based on the data by the time I've prepared the next video, but I know it's going to have one more push. Whether it breaks or not, that's the only thing I'm unsure of. But either way, that's definitely going to cause a trickle-down effect into the altcoins, into the riskier assets, and that's where we're going to have lots of opportunity. So it won't be an easy year of just like long anything and make money, but it will definitely be a year of opportunity and probably one of the last years in the cycle, if not the last year, where there might be free money during periods of the year. We saw it last year with coins like Trump. We saw it with Launchcoin. We saw it with Asta. We saw these narratives that came and just went absolutely huge. I think you're going to see it again this year. Spoiler alert, I'll talk about it soon. I think you're going to see it in AI potentially. That is definitely the sector that is ramping up. AI crypto as a proxy of that is ramping up as well. But I think you will see these sector rotations this year that are quite violent and give us opportunities to make money. It's definitely a year that is worth paying attention every single day. If you're going to dedicate 1 year of your life to paying attention to markets, to locking into markets, it's this year. Because after this, based on the data, things get murky. 2027 historically should not be a good year based on the business cycle and the real estate cycle. 2028, it'll be a recovery year, but it'll be much slower. During these slow/down years, the opportunities aren't as prevalent. And then we have a big election upcoming then as well. So that's going to make the market even more volatile. This year could truly be the last free hit we have in terms of risk assets. This isn't a bad thing. You need bear markets to create opportunity, and I'm actually excited for the next bear market because then I'd have an opportunity to load up on things that I've missed. Like I can't buy certain assets right now. I don't feel like I could buy a bunch of silver. I feel like I can buy long-term Bitcoin, but I don't feel like I can buy as much as I would want. So there are definitely assets that I want to accumulate. I want to accumulate more equities, but I feel like it's still more of a trader's market than an investor's market on that front right now, apart from some of the rotations and catch-up plays and stuff. So bear markets create opportunity, but bull markets obviously give you the ability to capitalize in a short period of time. And that's ultimately what I think 2026 is going to be. But I will do a video in a day or so that's going to go into depth here. So make sure you have notifications on, become part of the Noti gang, of course, and leave a comment that you did. And I'll give you that video, which is going to go through my predictions. And that's going to be a lot more granular and thought through in terms of the exact predictions for next year. But that is my rough thinking right now after a couple of weeks of reflecting on last year and looking forward to this year based on the research from myself and my team. And we're pretty much in agreement of that's how we see next year. And also been speaking to a lot of smart macro guys, speaking to Geordie, some of the other guys at Selene, some of the funds desks that I know, exchange guys. Everyone feels similar, owners of exchanges. I speak to a lot of people, and this is the general consensus. So I feel pretty confident in that. And let's see how my predictions go this year. So now that we're getting the wheels turning again, as I said, second full-time day back at the desk for me. Truthfully, I'm never off. I was still doing a lot of thinking, reflecting on my 2025. I won't get too deep into it today, but I was reflecting on some things I did wrong last year from a positioning point of view, even from a content point of view, from a business point of view, from a consistency point of view. I think a big issue with me was I wasn't as consistent as usual last year for a variety of reasons. It was just a bit of a crazy topsy-turvy year. So I was reflecting on that. I want to rectify a lot of those things this year. I think New Year's resolutions in some ways can be a bit rubbish because you can obviously make a change at any point during the year. But at the same time, because the market becomes quieter and because people typically have a break and you have I guess, an excuse to, switch off a little bit, it is a very good juncture for you to reflect and implement things for the new year that you want to improve. So I do urge you that now is the time to implement changes, whether it be to your life or, specifically on this channel, we talk about markets more so, to your trading journey, to your consistency when it comes to trading, when it comes to journaling, when it comes to your daily routine. Now would be a great juncture to do that and implement a daily routine. I'm going to have a video coming soon which goes through my routine tracker, my habit tracker that I vibe coded on Claude. Was doing a lot of vibe coding over the break. But this period, this week, especially, it's about getting the wheels turning again. And I'm going to help you do that on the channel over the next week, give you some ideas to get the wheels turning. So in today's video, we're not going to focus on the dashboards and the AI and that sort of stuff. We're going to focus on getting the wheels turning in terms of trade ideas. Some are actionable, some are just ideas, but it's about building your watch list for this year. This isn't a FOMO video of you need to FOMO into everything now. There are certainly trades that could trigger very, very soon, but some of this is longer term. Some of this you may want to consider shorter term. The first sector is meme coins. Meme coins have been going absolutely crazy. Now, I wouldn't just be aping into Pepe and stuff. It's already made a pretty big run, but I would look at some of the catch-up trades. Fartcoin is one of them. Now, it has been moving today, but it's still not even up at 2x yet, whereas other assets like Pepe are closing in on that, and it's also looking good from a chart perspective. Clearly, it's showing an uptick on the daily. If you go down the time frames, you can see it's now extending above resistance on the 4-hourly as well. So a potential setup here, I would potentially wait for a pullback and see if we get some sort of deviation reclaim play, or it can just go higher and then give me a potential entry on the moving averages, like the noodle, for example, which hasn't set in yet because it was in a choppy environment, but it should now be entering a trending environment. So when something enters a trending environment from a chop or a sideways environment, what will happen is you will see the average start to establish, and then that could give you a potential entry. So not entering Fartcoin right now, but I know a lot of other big traders are. Lots of whales and activity has been increasing on Fartcoin. I guess the logic there is just Fartcoin is one of the biggest, most popular memes, especially on CT, and memes are picking up. It's really that simple. So going down that line of thinking, what's another one? Useless is another one. This is up a little bit more, roughly a 2x since the lows. I don't always think the lows are the best measure because A, there's pretty much no world where you'll time the low exactly, and B, as I mentioned, there was tax loss harvesting and a lot of forced selling happening towards the end of the year, which suppressed prices a little bit lower than usual. But nonetheless, it is now retesting the beginning of December levels. I think you can wait for a pullback on this one, to be honest, because buying into resistance isn't exactly great. But if you did get one, it could be an entry, once again, going down the lower timeframes and looking for a setup, or potentially looking at a flip of a pretty key level historically, which is 14 cents, where you have some sort of invalidation. Once again, I don't think it's the time to just ape into things randomly, but I am trying to get the wheels turning in terms of, all right, memes are hot again, Pepe's hot. What could some of the rotations be? Fartcoin being one of them, Useless being another one of them. Not going too far down the risk curve, just looking at some of the main ones and adding them to my watch list. In terms of whale activity, a coin that I'm starting to see pick up a lot is Lit or Lighter. This is the exchange coin that recently launched, obviously one of the biggest launches of the year. It launched quite negatively. I actually said at the time in my Discord that I'm eyeing an opportunity if it drops into the $2 to $3 region, and actually said when it was $2.70 that I don't think it's a bad entry if you're interested, but for me the risk reward didn't make sense. I wish I took that trade. I know some people in the Discord did. I know Fabian was interested in it as well because it ended up going down to 240 and then rebounding quite aggressively to 320. I wouldn't be aping now, but the reason that I'm mentioning it is because it's a newer coin. It doesn't have that much overhang compared to other coins, and I think it's fundamentally a solid project. One of the top exchanges, and exchanges are, I think, a very hot narrative in the market. So either you get a pullback or you get a flip and you look at an opportunity. It's just one to add to the watch list. Some coins that I think look better from a longer term perspective are Hyperliquid and Asta. These two look pretty good in my opinion. You had the gap fill that was created on October 10th from Hyperliquid, rebounding off the channel low, and the red zone that you see here, that's the support zone from the wick low on October 10th. You're now seeing a push up into the highs of the channel. This is a strong setup potentially for a reclaim and a push to 35. If you desperately wanted to add something, I don't mind Hyperliquid as a medium-term hold. It should do well, although the exchange market is fragmented and dispersed a little bit more. I still think it'll do well over a medium-term period if your bias is that Bitcoin will go higher. Keep in mind, as I said before, Bitcoin is into resistance, but things like Hyperliquid should do well as long as the market does have an up year in general, which is, in my opinion, the macro situation that we'll get more into in future days on the channel. And on Asta, there's potentially an interesting flip happening. You can see the daily noodle and the daily resistance zone are converging at around 85. It has made a nice move off the lows, but this could potentially be a reclaim setup to take a look out. Looking at the H4 as well, you have the POC at 70 cents. I actually did add it and updated my positioning at some point in Discord. I've forgotten exactly where it is. I've been posting a lot of the past couple of days, so it's been bumped down. But I did a post on that I was buying some Asta. I think it was like 65 cents, 66 cents. It's now 78, so that's nice. But there is a nice setup starting to brew on the H4. This is actually a trending oscillator on the money noodle, unlike some of the other ranging money noodles that we're seeing. So it was rejecting the entire way down. You're now seeing a flip. Potential retest would give you an entry into 89. This is a short-term trade. Your support level's at 70 cents, which is the POC, as well as horizontal support as well. So that's a decent risk-reward setup for the shorter term, but for me, it's more interesting in the longer term. So if you need to take a shorter-term setup to start building a potential entry for a longer-term position, I think Asta is strong, being Binance's main perp dex. Not going too far into risk at the moment. Just look at the main things. In terms of memes, look at the main ones. In terms of exchanges, look at the main ones. Now, the last sector I want to point out today that I alluded to earlier that is definitely worth keeping your eye on, and I'm not going to lie to you, I haven't gone down the rabbit hole. I just haven't had time in the last day to see what the latest developments are and everything. It's definitely on my research list for tonight, though, after this video. It's AI. As Fabian points out in the Discord, he says there's a lot of hype around Claude 4.5 with AI coding. 100% it's been going crazy. I've been doing a lot of vibe coding on Claude myself as well. Fabian says the Claude hype's all over my feed. And he says he thinks the renewed AI hype is spilling over into crypto. A lot of the top gainers on the bounce are AI. That is definitely true. Like Virtual, for example, is 2x'd over the past few days, and AI agents are quietly bouncing 2x off the lows. Fabian says, I do think AI agents will be a prominent real-world narrative again this year as we transition from infrastructure build-out, data centers, models, etc., to AI products applications, which will largely be agent-based. Agents were premature. I do stick by this belief, and it is probably going to be in my predictions in a couple of days' time, that the agents run in January 2025 was premature. I think the big leap forward for agents is actually going to be this year. Agents historically have been very unstable and not reliable. This is the year that it changes. We've even seen over the last month how much Claude code has evolved. The same thing is going to happen to agents. I think the market's waking up to this narrative a little bit, but most retail isn't even back in the market yet. So the top agent plays are going to be some of the strongest plays this year. I'm just not going to give a bunch of picks today because I haven't done full research beyond a quick scan of the market. I obviously have some of my favorites, but I need to do updates on the development, speak to the teams, do all of that stuff. So my second day at the desk, so give me a break, guys. I don't just want to force calls down your throat. I just want to give you my overall thoughts on the market update today, but I'll talk about a couple. Obviously Virtual is the main one. This is doing really well. I don't think I would just buy this for the sake of it, but keep your eye on it. It is the leader, so if Virtuals is running, other agents are probably running. So that's why it should be on your watch list nonetheless. If you can tag the lows again, or at least get a bit of a pullback, I think it could be worth entering. But clearly you have resistance at 130, so buying here at 111, maybe there's a bit of juice left, but it doesn't feel like the highest upside trade. However, what I'm more interested in, instead of the ones that I've already run, are the solid fundamental projects. And I'm giving you one example now, but there's probably more that are extremely beat down, which haven't followed Virtual's lead fully. Aethia is one of them. Now, I actually took a big position in Aethia, and I'll be completely honest, this was one of my bigger losses last year. I took a decent-sized position, I think towards the end of Q3, start of Q4, got partially invalidated, is what it is, bought back again, and got invalidated again. So I took 2 hits at a loss on Aethia, which isn't great. I updated the trade throughout the Discord throughout that period. You live and you learn. This does happen in markets, of course. You can't always have wins. But I haven't changed my thesis that at some point this is going to run. And this goes exactly into what Fabian talks about as the vibe starting to shift towards AI and crypto. And Aethia is an infrastructure play at its core. Obviously, infrastructure is needed to power any agent. So it's a pick and shovel play. They've obviously been the popular plays in the stock market. So it's waking up. It is starting to break above the noodle now. There isn't much of a trend here establishing, so it's hard to pivot in terms of TA. But maybe consider picking a bag up. Obviously, this video is not financial advice. Make your own investment decisions, but this is something I'm considering. I already hold some, so that's why I'm not like jumping to rush and add a bunch more, but I think it could be a decent one that can squeeze higher. So something to keep your eye on, but as I said, I already hold a position there, so probably won't be looking at adding too much more. And I think that's it for now, because before we dive deeper into the AI rabbit hole, I want to come prepped with all the research. This was just a little add-on for you guys to talk about something that is definitely at the top of my research list. So we're getting the wheels turning again. We're starting to look for stuff again. We're starting to look for opportunities again. If I can stress one thing this year, and it's one of my biggest lessons from last year, it's just consistency. Consistency in life, and especially in the markets, is so important. Having a daily routine you stick to every day, no matter what day, is so important. Just make it manageable. Like, it doesn't need to be a crazy 31 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour routine. Mine is actually too long. I probably need to trim it even further. It took me like 4 hours this morning. Then again, I am full-time crypto, but just pick something manageable. It could be 15 minutes. All right, I'm going to scan TradingView for outliers. I'm going to bookmark 10 things on my X feed. I'm going to scan the Discord, the Telegram of people that I like and communities that I like. I'm going to take notes. I track everything in Notion. So if you have a trade idea, log it in Notion, log the progress if you open it, log your invalidation. It's all about organization. Consistency and organization in and of itself is an edge, notwithstanding other edges in the market that you can get through information asymmetries, etc. But I think one very low-hanging fruit that anyone can do without significantly upskilling that will increase your profits and lower your downside in the market is being consistent and being organized. So that is my advice for you this year. Get organized. I'll have a video on exactly how to do that very soon, but that is something I've been reflecting a lot about, and I think is a good start for the year. But the wheels are turning again. Let's crush it this year. I'll see you in the next video, and hopefully have a lovely rest of your day. See you later. Peace.